All right, welcome everyone to my monthly masterclass. This is free the fourth Thursday of every single month. And if you miss it, you can always catch it on my YouTube channel. So if you are not subscribed, please subscribe and you will get those recordings. So everything that I've done in the last, oh gosh, maybe 10 years is on YouTube, but now I do very specific master classes. They are also in our monthly newsletter. So if you miss it, we do give you the recording for that. So today we are going to talk about finding flow, building a business based on your natural rhythms. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Camille Miller. If you don't know who I am, usually if you're in my room, you know who I am. If you're new to my room, welcome. I am a strategic business and life coach. I work very specifically in reinvention and midlife reinvention. So many of my people are working in very logical jobs, doctors, lawyers, lots of educators right now, CPAs, people that have done very structured things for a long time. And they're like, this does not make my heart sing. And they come to me when they're in that space of transition, trying to figure out what is my next chapter look like. It could be halfway through your life. It could be a third of the way through your life. It could be at the end of your thing. And most people don't retire today. So it's just like, what am I going to do next? And it impacts the world. So my brand is really about purpose beyond profit. I want you to make a lot of money because when we make a lot of money, we bring wealth to the world, and our dollars is what impacts the world. So you can start putting dollars behind the things that you care about. So making money is a big part of what I'm about, but I'm also about bringing purpose-driven businesses to the world. And I work very specifically in service-oriented business. So energy healers and coaches and consultants and advisors and literally any industry. So I don't care if you make websites or you do Akashic records or you're a CPA. It doesn't really matter what you're doing or what your industry is, as long as it's service. You're serving others around the world and you want to be a good global citizen. I do have a soul. My brand is called Soul Professional, SOUL. And I am the pioneer of the Soul Professional movement, and is a global call to purpose-driven entrepreneurs all over the world. We're in about 30 countries right now. And we want to bring you together to collaborate, to make all of our businesses rise. That's why I do these free master classes, so I can answer questions and we can live life in alignment, right? So when you're running businesses that feel good, you are shining brighter in the world and people are magnetized, people are helped, and it's really that ripple effect. So even if you have 10 clients a year, you're helping 10 more people in the world be better humans, right? And they are probably helping other people and raising other humans, right? So that's the ripple effect that we're looking at in the world. And many times we find that our soul professionals around the world hire other soul professionals around the world because masters hire masters. That's who we are. And we feel each other's vibrations and we understand, and you don't have to pretend when you're working with a soul professional. So that's part of my movement. If you haven't been a part of the movement or haven't signed up, there is a pledge that you can sign called the Soul Professional Pledge. And I will drop that in. Hold on. It's soulprofessional.com/movement. I will put it in the chat for the people that are here. But you can also just go to soulprofessional.com, go to the movement, and you can read about the movement. The page is under construction a little bit, but you can read what we have and sign the pledge. There is a pledge about being a good global citizen, and it comes with a little web badge so we can find each other around the world. And the hope is, not the hope because we're going to do it, to create a directory so we can find each other all over the world. So with that, let me get started. So today we're going to talk a little bit about flow and being in the natural rhythm of your business. So that's called being in alignment. So for those of you that are with me live today, I'd love for you in the chat to tell me what made you want to show up today. Is there something being in flow that resonated with you, or the title, or whatever that looks like? Put in the chat to tell me, why you wanted to show up. And we're going to explore how building in alignment with your natural rhythm creates ease, it creates sustainability, and it creates prosperity. And I do believe that when you're in flow, none of the other stuff matters. Now, I will say I teach business, right? So I will say that being in business for yourself takes a lot of masculine energy and feminine energy, right? So when I talk about being in flow or having that soulful side, that's the feminine energy. And we both have both, right? No matter what gender you are, you have both energies, right? All of us have both. So it doesn't have to do with gender. It has to do with how we're approaching, right? You can also call it soulful energy, which is the feminine, and ego energy, which is the masculine. Okay, it takes both to run a business, because in business, you need the masculine because that's our structure, that's our finance. Those are like what I call KPIs, right? Your key performance indicators. Those are all really, really important. But our feminine energy is what I teach in business, right? So we have the foundation, but we also have the collaborations, the nurturing of relationships, right? That's feminine. The magnetism, showing up authentically, right? So you're attracting people, not hunting for them, not selling to them, right? So when you're showing up fully, that's your feminine, right? So people just go, that's what I want. I want to be that person. Because when people are buying from you, they're actually buying your energy in the world. They want to be just like you. That's what they're buying, right? At least your energy, right? They want to have, like, I want what she has. That's what they're buying, right? It's the energy. So that's what we're teaching. All right, let me read this chat real quick. Has our conversation we just had? Yes, I want to be me, more in flow and ease in my business. Excellent. Lots of change happening around my business right now, so this topic seemed timely. Terrific. Yes, definitely want to be in alignment and flow. I'm newly starting and want to build that way. I have to, no other choice. Tammy introduced me to you. Thank you, Tammy. And Helen, the higher being said, please stand up and show your true self. Woo! Love that. And I know we are being called to this higher plane right now. So if you're here, or you're just starting your business, or you're just saying, now I feel like I need to create impact in the world, there is a reason. It has been happening for at least since 2012. That's when I started to really resonate with it, right? It became really, really resonant with me in 2015 when I was dropped this, like, this is what you need to do in the world and start to create community. I do believe the last Lionsgate portal that we just went through on 8/8 was significant in the change of energy that we're feeling really around the world, right? And a lot of people, after a very slow summer, which we'll talk about that as being a natural rhythm, actually, as the cooler air comes in, at least here where I live in the States, in New Jersey, as the cooler air starts to come in, it's almost like this rebirth. And it kind of coincided with, the Lionsgate portal. We had a black moon that just came through. Like, all of this energy is shifting. And we're seeing people showing up and wanting to be more authentic. And that's a lot of the women and the feminine leadership that we're seeing around the world today, too. Not specifically here, but we're seeing more women, more than ever, especially over the age of 50, creating their own businesses at this time in life, and being entrepreneurs, and a lot of us being global. So the flow is really important. So when you're saying, if you're just starting out, or you're feeling a shift, something has changed, that could be it. I'm also seeing, especially this week, everyone's been telling me that they're kind of abandoning social media. Like, they're giving up. They're like, I am so done with this. Now, I have not been shown what that next thing is. And that's one of the reasons I closed down my membership after 10 years, because I feel like there's something coming, but I have not been shown what it is. So the whole soul professional movement and that membership is all free right now. And actually what people used to pay for, I give for free right now. Because once I'm shown, then I'll know what to do next. But for me right now, I feel like it's a gathering of all of the wisdom in the world and these people that are going through awakenings and creating businesses, especially women. We're going to have the answer. The answer just hasn't been shown to me yet. Maybe it's been shown to someone else. I haven't seen it yet. So that's some of the things. So thank you for sharing what made you show up. So along the way, I am a very interactive teacher, speaker. So please feel free to drop questions or stop or raise your hand, and I'm happy to stop and answer that, especially if something shows up in your own business and you just want more clarification or to talk about it. Happy to give you a hot seat. So let's talk about flow and what this really means in business flow first. So flow, to me, means operating from a place of alignment, so not force, right? You're going with the flow. If you think of a river, right? If you put a raft on a river, you're going with the flow and it feels good. And that's why they sometimes go on lazy rivers, right? You can just go with the current. You go with the force. You go with the current. You're not forcing yourself. Resistance is going, if you tried to paddle back to where you started, that's doing things in resistance, right? That's the opposite of flow, is resistance. When you're trying to make something happen that is not natural and flowy at this point. And later on, we'll talk about, times of years, times of our own personal cycles, times of life. I do believe that each decade as we grow actually gives me a different energy or a different time of my life. So those are all part of what we call our natural rhythms, right? So as we're flowing, we want to think about all of that. So we'll talk about that. There's a very big difference between hustle culture, which I believe was rooted in the 80s around greed, versus this flow-based entrepreneurship that we're really going into now. And I think since the global pandemic, we have seen this migration to a flow-based entrepreneurship model because people got used to being home or doing things on their own schedule, or if they felt like flowing in laundry or going to the kids' soccer game, or for me, I like to get up and go to the gym or do something or read, right? I am most productive in my mornings. So that's when I try to get things done. A lot of times I get up, I write an article once a week for a LinkedIn newsletter. A lot of times I get up and I write it, and then I go to the gym. I get out all of my thoughts because that's what works for me. I like a quieter morning. That's what works. So that's part of flow when we're figuring out our schedules, right? That's flow-based work instead of the hustle culture. If I worked full-time for a company, they'd probably expect me to be there at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and work all the way to 5, whether I was productive or not. They want me there during these hours, right? And that doesn't work for most people in the world, actually. Success does not require constant grind. Success comes from a consistency rooted in alignment, not from grind. So if you have a consistent flow to your day or to your week or your natural flow, you actually will be more successful in the long run. If anyone wants to drop in the chat, I'd love to, or speak, I'd love to hear from you. When do you feel most alive, focused, creative? And if something that makes, or if you do something specific to make you have that creative. For me, going out for a walk, going in nature, working out, a lot of times I figure out whatever I'm stuck with. Right? If you have a problem to solve, working on that problem over and over and over and over in your head is like the worst thing you can do. right? Because that's not in flow, that's in resistance. The best thing to do is go for a walk, move your body, switch up your energy, because as soon as you're moving your body, you're switching your energy. So when you switch your energy, that's when it's likely to come to you. So that's why a lot of people say, when I'm in the shower, when I'm driving a car, when I'm hiking, when I'm working out, is because you're not in resistance. You're actually in flow in that morning, at that moment. So that flow state should be a part of your business plan. So when I work with clients, it's where are your days off? What are the boundaries? When are you closing your office, right? If it's hiking, um, um, are you doing it every day or week, right? I hike every single week. This summer, I found kayaking, right? And being on the water and just, I have a thing with water. It could be just because I grew up on the East Coast with the ocean, but I have a thing with water. And that's what does it for me. There's something that probably does it for you. And that's what we call being in flow. Traveling, yeah. Kaz just said traveling's a big one for me too. Getting out. All right. And if there's anything that makes you come alive, please share it. I'd love to hear it. Sometimes you'll spark something in someone else. All right, let's talk a little bit about your natural rhythms. So naturally, especially women have biological rhythm, men do too, but women have one every 28 days. That is our biological rhythm. If you are female bodied, you have a biological rhythm. If you're male bodied, you also have a biological rhythm. I believe, I did not look this up, I believe it's annual, but I could be wrong. If anyone knows, you can write it in. But women are 28 days, right? Our energy cycles, our sleep cycles, our creative patterns are all part of our biological rhythms, right? So there are people that don't need a lot of sleep. I am one of those people that need a lot of sleep. So sleep is a big part of my plan, right? My business and my personal life is like a lifestyle, right? So I need a lot of sleep. I wind down at like 8:30 at night. I don't necessarily go to bed at 8:30 at night, but that's when I start my evening routine, right? So I need a lot of sleep. 8 hours is probably the minimum. It's very important to me. And like I said, my creative pattern is when I wake up in the morning, I have a lot of energy and a lot of creative ability. So I do my writing, I'll do math, like my bill paying and stuff like that is all done when I need a lot to focus on in my brain. That all gets done in my mornings. And there's some things that if I haven't gotten to them by the end of the day, like actually today I have to write, I have like 3 proposals that I have to write. The end of the day is not a good time for me to be thinking through things. So I don't do it. That'll get pushed to the start of my day tomorrow, right? Where I have a clear time. I also have no Zoom days. So that's something to talk about when we talk about timing. So you want to work according to your biological rhythms, your energy cycles. If you're good in the morning, do morning. I had a client that was amazing after 6 p.m. at night. Like that's when she did all of her writing. She's an author and a speaker. So night was her thing, and that's great. You just have to honor your rhythm. Whatever your rhythm is, that's what you got to honor. Another rhythm is seasonal, right? How nature and the seasons affect your motivation, your productivity. We just said summer. Most of the time in summer, because it's hot, at least here on the East Coast, it's hot for us. So we're slower. We slow down, right? The days are longer. We call them the long days of summer, right? So it's a slower pace. It's a longer day. So you have to think about that when you're working. Summer is actually a great time to be productive or get those long projects done that you don't have time during your busier season. It's a good time to plan your next part of your season, right? Because it's long days of summer. If you had things that you had to contemplate, or programs you need to write, books. If you're a big writer, the summer is a great time for those longer creative projects, right? It is not a good time for hustling, for selling, for launching, just generally speaking, right? Because summer is a season. Um, as we go into the fall and the crisp weather, like kind of where we are right now, September is kind of like a new year for most people. And why is because here in the United States, our kids go back to school August in the Midwest, September here on the East Coast. It changes across our country. But when your kids start to go back to school, you get back into rhythm, right? Because during that time, if you have kids, you're in a different rhythm. If you're past that stage, you might see people start coming back to your programs and your things, right? So this summer, June and July, very specifically, as I saw things starting to slow, I said, instead of being in resistance all summer and trying to fight what naturally is happening, I'm just really going to take time off and not do a lot of client work and just kind of take a step back. And I actually traveled for most of June and was quiet during July. And in August, actually right after the Lionsgate portal, I got a lot of energy back. So I started to create and reach out to people and have conversations again as we're going into the new year. So that's all part of the natural flow of our seasons, right? So think about that. The last one is life stage rhythms, right? Honoring if you're in a midlife shift, if you have family responsibilities, if you have personal priorities, like if you're in school right now, my kids are in their 20s, they're out of college. I have a 25-year-old that's kind of launching into life and kind of deciding things. And I think your 20s is a very big decade, right? Because most people in their early 20s are coming out of university. And by the time you're at the end of your 30s, sometimes you're married with families and all of these other things. You've started careers. Like 20s is a big growth, right? And then 30s, you're figuring out that next step. You're usually mid-level in your career. You're deciding if you're shifting something, like you're growing. Then there's 40s, there's 50s. That's where I am right now, where I have older children and ailing parents, right? So my responsibilities are split there. And there's also a piece of me that's like, what am I doing with this next chapter of my life? Because my kids are launching their own lives. And I've been a single mom most of my life. And obviously they're my top priority. But, when they all leave the house, then what? What am I doing with myself? So a big part of my time this year was like, how about make some friends? There's a new novel idea. So for this summer, I was like, I'm going to do things that bring me joy. And that's how I ended up taking up kayaking. Right. And I hike and I do all of that things because I like the outside. So it was a part of my life where I'm just like, okay, this is the chapter and this is where I am. But I also don't have the strength and the long hours that I had in my 30s and my 40s when I was building my business. Right. Sometimes I sit up in bed and I'm like, how did I do all of that? I raised a family. I worked full time. I did triathlons and I did my doctorate degree, my master's I did my doctorate degree when I had kids. I don't know how I did it. I look back now and I'm like, I don't know, making a cup of tea and walking over there to the kettle is a lot. So it's kind of like this different stage of life. And it's what do I really want to do and still bring me joy, right? So that's why I took up kayaking. I've said that a few times, but it was something that I could do. It got me stability, got me out of the house, got me in nature, got me with new friends, right? So it was kind of like, what does that do? So each stage of life, wherever you are, you have to look at how is that fitting within your business, right? Because all of our businesses, whether we like it or not, are lifestyle businesses, right? They're part of our lives because as entrepreneurs, we can't really separate them, right? And a lot of us work from home. So we're in our homes, we're in that home energy that whole time. One of the things I can say though is make sure that you work in a very separate spot from where your life goes, right? You should have a space to work that's just for work, right? I have an office in the house. This is my office. This is where I work. Even like when I get bills and stuff, I bring them up and lay them on my desk and then I leave, right? Because I organize and do things in my office. This is where I work, where I'm productive. I get dressed and I show up for work every single day. I show up dressed for work every single day. It is very important to productivity. And at the end of my day, I close my computer, turn off the lights, I leave work. I immediately put my hair up in a ponytail, change my clothes into sweats, right? Because that's what I always did. That's what makes me feel comfortable. And then I usually go downstairs and make dinner or whatever else, right? So I create the space for me to work and be productive. I still come to work. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we totally lose track of showing up for ourselves, right? Because we don't really have to. Nobody's watching us. The boss can't catch us. So we don't. So a big part of our entrepreneurial journey is showing up and having that structure, right? Masculine energy, having the structure in our life and business that makes us do things. Because without structure, we're kind of flailing all over the place, right? Even in our spiritual businesses, when I help people build their lifestyle business, there is some structure, right? And I always do what's called KPIs, key performance indicators. For me, I've chosen one of them is I talk to 20 new people every single month. And I have done it since 2020. I called it my 20 for 2020, right? 20 new people every single month. I still do that. And I still I actually handwrite it and I count them all. So this month I have had 16 people so far of this month. And that's all I'm going to have because the month is over next tomorrow. So I'm going to hit 16 this month. And that's okay. So it's something that I keep track of, right? For you, it might be how many networking events do you go to? How many proposals do you get out? How many client conversations do you have? How many follow-ups do you have? Like your performance indicators could be anything. It should not be likes on your posts though, right? It should not be your followers because unless that is turning to actual revenue and dollars, unless it's actually converting for you, that is not a KPI, right? That is not a performance indicator. So you need to have performance indicators in your business, especially as an entrepreneur, so you show up for yourself. So you know what you're supposed to be hitting, right? How you do it is really on your flow, right? How you do it is completely up to you, right? How I do it is I usually set like 5 appointments a week, or I actually usually set 6 or 7 because 1 or 2 will cancel and then I don't have to worry about it. And I don't want to like be at the end of my month going, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. I've been doing this for so long that I don't actually really count. I still keep my sheet, but it's not the biggest indicator in my business at this moment. I just kind of do it out of habit at this point. In the beginning though, it was big. And I made sure that I hit it every single time. And I had months that I hit 30, right? Because I was so on target or everyone showed up. This particular year, I've tried to be on a podcast every single week. That was my goal this week. That was my KPI this year. And in June, I ended up booking a whole bunch because people weren't going to broadcast or record over the summer. So many other people were taking off. So what happened was in June, I think I recorded 16 of them. This month, I think I had 2. Next month, I have like 3. And I realized I was like, okay, I'm going to have to use the law of averages at this point because they're all going to come out over the year, right? So it was just, I had to relook at it. But September, October is actually fully booked already. I'm back on track, right? In July, I think I only had one or two, but it'll average out. So those are the kind of things, it's my KPI. But if I need to look in a quarter, I can do that. So everyone should have your own KPIs to keep you on track in your business, but also within the rhythm of who you are, right? The rhythm of the season. So do you see how that all is kind of coming together? Of knowing how to be in flow, you're still showing up and honoring who you are and how you choose to work, but you're doing it in a way that you're still in a structure that's working for your business so you can make money. Does that make sense? It's the two of them together that makes it happen. And that's how it has to show up. Are there any questions so far? Or specific about your own business? Okay, this is all making sense. So when we talk about being in flow, it's how you want to show up. Now I have non-Zoom days because Zoom sometimes makes me crazy. I do so much work on Zoom. 100% of my work is usually done on Zoom, except if I'm writing, right? So tomorrow is a non-Zoom day. My Fridays are a non-Zoom day, and I have Monday and Wednesday, I have non-Zoom mornings. I don't take an appointment till 1 p.m. Now I actually go to the gym in the middle. But I get up, pretty early, like 7. Sometimes on Mondays, I do my writing before I go to the gym. Then I come home and I'll start my things. And that's the flow that works for me. I will mention that during the winter and as seasons change, I need to change too. I know that when it gets dark early, I have a lot of trouble, right? So I have to kind of switch my schedule a little bit to make it feel right in my flow. And that's okay, as long as you know what's happening, right? And when it's conscious, it's a little better, right? So you want to work your schedule out so it makes sense for you, right? On my non-Zoom days, I don't necessarily get dressed up real pretty to show up on a Friday, but I cannot tell you how much work I get done on a Friday because my phone's not ringing. I also keep my phone off at all times, all times. So that helps me stay in flow. I answer emails usually one time after I close my office at the end of my day, whenever I decide the end of my day is. And I usually get tired like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I used to just drink coffee and keep going. And now I'm like, I'm not doing that. Right. So even though I have a lot of writing that I thought I was going to do this morning, but I got pulled in a different direction because something else called to me that was good in that moment. I probably won't do a lot of writing this afternoon, but that'll fall into my Friday. Right. And that's why I keep an unbooked Friday for things that really need my attention, and I won't be bothered. Right. So I don't take appointments, but it's easier for me to do. Is this all making sense? Okay, good. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about designing a flow-based business. I gave you some examples as I was talking. So business models that are in flow, like moving from time for money to leveraged scalable models that match your energy. So I go back and forth with doing one-on-one work to doing group work. I kind of am in flow, and now I'm being pulled to one-on-one work again, and that's okay. Sometimes I like group work, right, where it's more scalable, but I work very intensely and very personally with people on them. So it can't be the same for every single person. My work doesn't work that way. Some of you have work that can work that way, and that's great. My work doesn't work that way. So I have to figure out ways to scale things, right? I have a mastermind. So usually after people work with me in some capacity, it could be 1 or 2 sessions, it could be a full-blown business design. They usually go into my mastermind for accountability, right? So I could watch their business, and they're also working with other people that are scaling their businesses, right? That's a scalable model for me to have a mastermind that runs the whole year. They do also meet with me quarterly just to make sure that they're staying on schedule, and they have access to me. But it's scalable in the way that I'm not working with each of them one-on-one, right? I'm more of an accountability partner and scalability coach after they've worked with me. So we're staying in line. So that's scalable. That works with my time. If you have, and I work actually with a lot of doctors that come to me with practices, and this could be energy healers or whatever, and they have appointments all day long, right? In hourly time slots, they're with clients for 50 minutes and they're booked back to back to back to back. My energy cannot handle that at all. That is not how I can handle things. So I have to look for a model that serves me, and you have to look for a model that serves you, right? If you work great in circles with people and then you break out, I usually only take 3 one-on-one clients at any time. Because as a strategic officer, I also have to remember their entire business all the time. So that's how I do it. So I need to work with groups so I can individually work with people, but I can't work a lot of time with one-on-one clients. That's how my business works, right? So you don't want to always trade time for money. So in those cases where people are back to back, a lot of times we work on bringing on contract employees or other doctors, because they're usually doctors, or a different way so that they have more time in their schedule and they can help more people. Because remember, it's that ripple effect, right? How do you help more people with less time? So part of scaling your business, and I always talk about scaling with soul, is how do you keep your energy and scale in a way that feels good and aligned with you? Does that make sense? So if you're always trading time for money, you can never get out of the rut. You will always be behind. You will always not have time. You will always be tired. So it's how do you scale in a way that makes sense? And sometimes it's online courses, it's passive income, it's group programs, lots of other ways to do it. Okay, that's businesses that have flow. Calendar and flow, designing days of the weeks around your deep work, your creativity, your client work, and your rest. A great book I read is, and we actually do it in my mastermind, we read books, is called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And they talk a lot about actors, and my kids are performers. So, and I was an athlete, so it works the same way with athletes, right? You have days where you are performing, or that is your performance day, right? Game day, or performance day. And that is 100% you're all in. That will take all of your energy. Usually right after that is a rest day, right? That's why football players don't play every single day, right? You need rest days where complete rest, not like I'll dabble a little bit, complete rest, right? I always make sure that my clients have a absolute rest day. My Sunday, I do not allow myself to open a computer or walk into my office on a Sunday. And if someone texts me or does something, actually clients aren't allowed to text me. That's another boundary I have. But I'll say when I'm in the office on Monday, I will get back to you, because I will not open a computer, because I'll go right down that rabbit hole, because I actually enjoy working. So I'll be out, right? So it's having those rest days. It's having that Friday. It's having whatever that looks like. I have my gym mornings, right? It's scheduling your time in those calendars, right? And I always say, if you erase it, you must replace it. So you have your performance days, you have your rest days, you have your practice days, right? You have days where you're practicing. If you're my kids that are in the performing arts, they have voice days. They have, days where they're practicing their lines on their own, and they have the group rehearsal. I forget what they're called, practice days, right? Same thing with sports teams, right? I was a basketball player, so there were days where I just worked on my shot, worked on my shot, worked on my move all the time, right? And there are days that I'm with my team and I'm working, right? So that's how you actually want to work your schedule too, right? When I was a CEO of a bigger company, I had staff meetings where we brought everybody in. It was part of our team, and they were the same time I don't know if it was every week or every other week. I just remember it was Tuesday. We brought everybody in. That's what we do. I still do that today with my team, right? Everyone comes in, let's talk about what's on the table. So those are the kind of days you want. So you want marketing days, you want communication days. Tuesdays and Thursdays are days that I talk to clients or new people. Clients I'll talk to on Monday too. Mondays and Wednesdays I'll talk to clients, but Tuesdays and Thursdays are my networking days and new people days, right? Because it's a different frame of mind. You never want to shift your frame of mind, right? If you're in creativity mode, you don't all of a sudden want to go into a sales mode, right? So Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm talking about my business. I'm in sales mode all the time, right? Teaching to me, like a masterclass like this is also like a sales mode for me, right? I have client calls, I have catch-up calls, I have teaching. Tuesdays and Thursdays always. If you're part of my networking group, we do that on a Tuesday. If you're part of my masterclass group, we do that on a Thursdays, because Tuesdays and Thursdays are those teaching days for me. Does that make sense? So you want a calendar that allows you to be in flow. Now, if you wake up one day and you're supposed to be writing or doing a marketing piece and you just don't feel like it, that's okay. Honor that. Don't do it. But you must put it somewhere else. You don't just drop it, right? It's too easy for an entrepreneur. If you have prospecting days, right? My Tuesdays and Thursdays, if I move that or have to clear my calendar for something, it moves to the following week, it moves to the following day, depends on the importance of it, right? But it gets moved somewhere else. You don't just drop it or forget about it. You have to move it to a new space. Does that make sense? Where you can be in flow. And normally what happened to me today, I started knocking off the little things that were on my Friday schedule. I started knocking off little phone calls and stuff all day today. So they all got knocked off. So my Friday gives me a wider scope to write tomorrow. It's because I just did a bunch of little phone calls and stuff. Okay. What else? Calendar offers, days of the week, offers, sorry. Offers, creating programs that feel energized to deliver instead of draining. So that's the same thing that we touched on before. If it's one-on-one, if it's group, like these master classes, very easy for me to do. We set the schedule a year ahead of time. So I pick all the topics. And so I know what's coming every single month. And I write a couple bullet points right before it. And we just talk about it, right? I don't have to prepare a lot for my free classes because they're free, right? But if you're in one of my business accelerators or one of my paid programs, I put a lot of time into it. So I block time between it, right? So like when I have my mastermind, I never really take a call before that. So I'm in the right energy when I'm showing up, because people are paying for that, right? They're paying for me to show up. That's a different energy for me. And between calls, I always make sure I have at least 30 minutes, because my energy can't go from call to call to call to call to call, right? I can't go back to back to back to back to back to back. But this morning I had a bunch of calls. I didn't get any writing done, but I had a bunch of calls. I can teach right now, because that's actually relaxing for me to teach, so I don't worry about it. And my afternoon is a little more open, and then I have a 6 o'clock, but we'll fill in stuff, right? So if something had to move from another day, it could have also moved here. So think about how your calendar, your offers, right? How they fill in, and marketing. Choose platforms that feel natural, not forced. Okay, think about currently where you're pushing against your natural flow in your business, your model, your schedule. Um, Social media for a lot of spiritually tapped in people is a little too much. I'm also an introvert. It's like a little too much for me. I really I don't do Instagram at all. Um, I had a marketing team that started an account for me, but I've never actually even been on it. Um, Facebook, I think, is completely dying at this point. Um, I don't use Facebook. I use it personally just to kind of follow friends and stuff, but in business, we have a Facebook group. We ask everyone to join it. We cannot get people to engage. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not going against the current to try to fight with Facebook to get visible again. So I just decided not to do it. Right? I'm not going to force myself to go against what's like Facebook used to be very easy to put in your feeds and have these free groups. It is so hard right now that I'm not forcing it. I do spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. A lot of time on LinkedIn. That's where I make a lot of my connections. But I chose to write a newsletter instead of most posts because for me, most people can't compete in a 3,000 word article every week where I can just write, this is what happened to me this week. This is what happened to a client. This is what's coming up in my business. This is right. And I get actually more engagement there than my posts. So I just kind of switched it up because it's less resistance and competition from everyone else. Does that make sense? So when you're building something, you're thinking about the less resistance. What feels like it's honoring you? What feels good, right? If Instagram feels good to you and nothing else does, then that's your thing, right? I did TikTok for a long time. I keep telling myself I'm going to go back to TikTok. I actually love TikTok. But when they started fighting about taking TikTok down, I was like, I am not going to build an audience for them to wipe this out on me. I'm not going to do it. So I stopped. And that was months ago. So now I'm like, is it going to stick around? Should I start again? I don't know what the answer is, but it is why I stopped. All right. I guess I have a couple more sections, but let me see. Clearing blocks. I don't want to talk about that. All right. So let me just wrap up. The most important thing that I want you to take from this or think about after this class is where are you currently pushing against your natural flow, whether it's your business model, it's your schedule, it's your offers, it's how you market, it's social media, it's your natural rhythm, biological, seasonal, your life decade, whatever it is. I just want you to start to think about what is it for you and what can you change to make it feel more natural. But I just also want to remind you to show up, right? Those KPIs, very important, right? It can't be, I tell my clients all the time, where it's like, I just want to be in flow. And I was like, okay, laying on your couch, no one's knocking on your door. So, right, there is a balance between being in flow and being in business. You are still in business, but you have to work the business around your natural flow. Does that make sense? You still have to show up. You still have to have some structure. Like, I'll work on really hard on Monday, but I'm not working on Tuesday. Whatever it is for you, right? Natural flow, but in a structure that works and that you can manipulate. So when I work with people in designing their business, I design a business that you can turn on when you need extra money, or you can turn off to take off the summer, because that's what I do, right? And I travel a lot. So I have a business that I can turn all the way up and crank if I need a lot of money. And I have a lot of time, which I usually do in the fall. And then I could bring it back. And I also want to experience the holidays with my family because naturally people will die out right after Halloween. the whole market starts to quiet, I don't have to panic because I already know that that's part of natural flow, right? I know everyone's going to come back the third week in January. They always do, right? So I don't fight that by trying to launch something in December when no one's going to pay attention, right? So it's understanding a natural flow. So I teach turning it on, turning it back whenever you want, right? Your business should look like that. Does that make sense? Any questions before I wrap up completely? You can raise your hand, you can put something in the chat. And I'm just going to read quickly to wrap up, flow, cycle. Okay, I think I touched everything. Any questions? No? You are welcome. Does this make sense to everybody? Good sense? Yeah, that we have the natural flow. Yes, excellent. You just have to see what it is for you. All right, if you guys are part of my community, which you probably are, just remember that we have networking the third Tuesday of every single month. We have these free master classes the fourth Thursday of every single month. There are some months that we switch them up, so you have to look at the calendar, but these are also on YouTube. If you've seen this one or been a part of this one, but you'd like to see something else, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is Camille L. Miller, and subscribe so you see them as they hit, or you can go back and see all the ones on, time management and marketing and selling. We've done them on all different sorts of topics. And if you'd like to work with me or talk to me about your particular program, if I haven't spoken to you before, you can always sign up for a clarity call with me, and you can do that at soulprofessional.com. Hold on, I'm going to drop my link. And I do help people with strategy. So that is one of my, let me just put that in the link. You can also go to soulprofessional.com, find out about me and how I work. But I do short strategy sessions with something called Psyche, which is an energy psychology, to remove those subconscious beliefs. If you have an earnings ceiling, or you're not producing, or you have fear around something that's showing up in your business, we can clear that out and usually just tweak a strategy that's not working for you in a quick session. So there is always that, and I urge you to reach out. Even if you don't know what the next step is for you, I'm always happy to have that conversation with you, and it's free to have the conversation. So feel free to do that. And that's all I got. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Yay! Yeah, excellent. It was great seeing you. Thank you guys for having your cameras on. I think this is the first class I ever taught where everyone kept their camera on. So I do appreciate that. And it's always really nice. And like I said, join us again the next month. Yeah, it should be I think it's the fourth Thursday next month too. So many thanks to all of you. And that's all I got. So enjoy the rest of your day. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and please join the community if you haven't already. And we'll see you again next month. Bye, everyone.